Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Zoo On. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Zoo On. Thank you to Let's Forget the Rules, which is the publisher, for sponsoring this video, and this is also a prototype copy in front of me, so all of this is rules, components, and things like that, subject to change. But with that, we are talking about Zoo On. Now this is a game for ages 6 and up, so it's geared toward a younger audience, or those who enjoy a lighter game, and it also has some pretty adorable animals, where players are going to be competing against each other to have these different zoos that are the most adorable. Now there is also a family mode if you're playing with very young little ones, so that is an option, but if you'd like to see exactly how this game plays, there's also a playthrough that I believe will be on the channel after this video, so you can also check that out. In Zoo On, players are trying to create the best zoo possible, and that's obviously determined by how worthy your different animals are. For example, having a leopard in your zoo is going to award you 8 points, whereas having a fox, which is a bit more common, is only going to award 4 points. So as you can see, all of the different animals that you play to your enclosures will create your zoo and build you up with different points along this track. Now the first player to reach 50 is going to trigger endgame, and then after that players are going to see who stands where and has the best zoo possible. Now I'm going to go over the pace of play in a moment and how you get all of these cards into play, but in order to build out your zoo you're going to need to first place enclosures, and then the enclosures are going to have a certain habitat such as the savanna. And then after that you'll have to have food to feed your animals such as meat or vegetables, and then after that you can place your different animals. So that's how you'll be placing them into their enclosures and then scoring points for that. And then on top of that, players are going to have a shared goal that they're working toward, as well as a personal goal which is going to award them some victory points. Now these personal goals are public knowledge, so other players are able to know exactly what you're looking for when you're looking for them, because you are discarding often to a center market, making cards available for other players, so you want to be sure that you're careful to not give your opponent exactly what they're looking for. Now I have a player to this side and a player to this side, and if you see, all of the ones on this side are set up how you typically would, as well as these animals. However, this particular enclosure I have very spread out so you can see exactly how you would play these cards in order. So normally this one would be stacked as well, similar to these, but I just have it so you're able to see exactly what I mean. So you can see there is an enclosure here, and then the Arctic, and then 2 different plants to be able to feed 2 different animals. And then after that we have a lemming and a caribou. Now there's a whole bunch of different types of enclosures, such as we have the Arctic here, the savanna, the forest, the jungle, and then we also have different types of food such as plants and meats. But we also have all different kinds of animals that will vary not only from the enclosure that they require, and from the different victory points that they will provide, but also the food that they require. So certain animals are going to be vegetarian and only require plants to eat, such as our 2 friends here. And then over here in our forest enclosure, you can see that our fox is an omnivore, meaning that it will eat meat or plants, and you are able to use meat to provide for the forest. However, carnivores are not able to be stored with anyone else. It is extremely dangerous, and I do not recommend it. So here in our savanna, we have a leopard alone with meat, and over here we also have a jungle with a tiger in it alone with meat. So that is the restrictions for the game, is that as you are building out these enclosures, depending on the different animals that you want to be playing, you'll be planning out whether you are having carnivores alone or you'll have your omnivores and your herbivores together instead. Now I did note that players are going to have those endgame scoring that they are working towards, so there is a shared goal up here, and this one is finish the game without any forest animals. So here this player has 2 forest animals. They must have decided that the points are worth it to be able to play those, because they would not be able to score this public project. However, this player is still in the running for scoring that project. Now looking down here, this player has complete the game with at least 2 enclosures inhabited by Arctic animals. Now this is only 1 Arctic enclosure, so this player is not yet meeting this condition even though they have 2 Arctic animals, and they will have to work towards another enclosure before the end of the game and those 50 points are reached. Over here though, we have 2 points per savanna animal, meaning that this player is going to be able to stockpile points for that, gaining as many as possible, and currently they have 4 victory points at the end of the game. Now, keeping all of those placement restrictions in mind, the pace of play of the game is going to be you are first going to draw a card either from the main draw deck or the 3 discard piles that you are able to choose from, because you are able to choose from these which form a market. So you could choose this very cute enchanted animal here, and in fact if you did, and if this store was ever empty, you would then immediately fill that as well. So first you would start by drawing a card, and then you would choose to play a card. So you're able to play a card from your hand, whether it's a certain type of habitat that can go in an enclosure, a food that can go in a habitat, or an animal that you want to play, and when you do play the animals, you will score your victory points. However, the enclosures are a common card that everyone has access to, and they are not shuffled into the deck, they're over here. So in order to be able to play an enclosure card, you would have to first discard a card from your hand, and then you would be able to play that enclosure to your area as a new enclosure for you to use. Now, the one type of animal I did not go over that breaks all of these rules are the birds. The birds you are only able to play once you have a bird house, which is going to be randomly drawn from the deck, or you'll be able to find it at the store, but it is pretty rare that you will find a bird house. And then after that, you'll be able to have an unlimited number of birds in your birdhouse, scoring you slightly less victory points because they are a bit easier to play, but you'll be able to stockpile them there and perhaps have a whole bunch of birds, which could be really special. Now, the final type of card that you guys actually have not seen yet is that players are also going to be able to play different action cards. So if you choose for your play for the turn, you could play one of these instead, and they're going to really change a lot in the game. Now, this is just for examples. There are others throughout the deck, but just to show you a couple of things that could happen, this one is swap all cards in your hand with another player's, replay your turn. So you would be able to play this to get a whole fresh new hand of cards and then replay your turn. And especially if you were paying attention to what that player was drawing here from the market, that can be extremely strong. Another one here is swap 2 habitats in-game or with the store. So that's a way you would be able to have more flexibility with your habitats if something came out that you have been waiting for. Another one is select a player and make him skip their next turn, replay your turn. So that's a way for you to not only get an additional turn, but to skip someone within the game, because this is meant for up to 6 players. And there's also this one, mover, steal a habitat from the store or a player with more points than you and place it in your zoo. So you can see where these really change and affect the game. They are not as common as drawing the different types of pieces that you need to build out your enclosures, but they are really going to change the game for the players that are able to play them at a very opportune time, but they can also be quite chaotic, that some of them are really going to perhaps throw you a curveball, such as switching hands and then not being able to work with much of what you got. At the beginning of the game, players are going to start with 5 cards, and you will almost always have those 5 cards rolling over. So you will draw one for your turn, bringing you up to 6, but then you will always play one, meaning that you should almost always have 5 cards. Now, toward the end of the game, you might start having it be a bit tricky with the food you need to find or the certain habitats that match the animals you have. So there's actually one other action that you are able to do, which is discarding your entire hand to draw 5 new cards, either from the store or the deck or from both, and that would be able to give you a chance to really refresh your hand for something that you're looking for, but you would be discarding your whole hand. So you would have to know that whatever you are holding onto isn't something that you're hoping to set up for. It can be a little bit risky, but it can also be extremely rewarding, especially with those actions that I went over, that those can really change the pace of play for you. Now, before we go, I think that the charm of the game is going to come in the different animals that you are able to have in your enclosures. So before we go, I'm just going to go through some of these, such as this oryx here. We have a rhinoceros. These are all from the savannah with a zebra. Here you have some plants and desert. We have an alligator. Here's a parrot that you'd be able to put in your birdhouse, which would be very lucky. Oof, a narwhal. So you're going to see that almost every single animal is very delightful for you to be able to find. And then, of course, you're happy to be feeding them and things like that. Here's another action card, which is a universal food. You would be able to use this for either type of food, but the cook card is absolutely delightful to be able to see. Here we have a lemur, a lion. Yeah, so the different animals are just so cute to see. Cobra, penguin, and things like that you'll be able to encounter throughout the game. Now, there was one that I did not specifically go over, which is the enchanted animal. We have different enchanted animals and enchanted habitats, and those are able to work as a wild for you, but they're just also so fun and cute to be able to see. Now, the different enchanted animals are actually different, where they award different victory points depending on the one that you find and that you're able to feed and put into your enclosure. but they can be something that can provide a bit of flexibility for players as they're getting close toward the end of the game, that they would be able to play these enchanted creatures into their different habitats. Overall, Zoo On is going to be a fast-paced game of set collection where you are trying to get these different animals, and then once you have the animals, that's kind of where you build out your plan of what different enclosures you need to make for them. Unless, of course, you end up with a lot of habitats at first, then you might start setting out all of your different habitats and hope that different animals come along that really want to be there. Now, these projects really lean you ahead for what you want to be doing in the game, and if you're playing with little ones, there are ways to make this a lot easier for you. They are able to teach this to them. Now, you can check out the link down below for everything that they have planned for this campaign. This has been a preview of Zoo On, and as a reminder, there is a gameplay on the channel that I highly suggest checking out if you're able to. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Code channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!